Here with Dr. Paul Connett. We're here with Dr. Paul Connett from the Fluoride Action Network. He's doing a presentation in London, Ontario tonight on his book, The Case Against Fluoride. Welcome to snowy London, Ontario, Paul.
Well, thanks, Pam. It is most exciting. I don't think I've ever seen my name in larger letters than on this sign back here, where you've got the case against fluoride, Paul Connett, PhD. Advertising the meeting tonight at the library at Wolf Hall.
That's right. And so today we're going to be talking to a full house, I suspect. We've had a lot of publicity on this issue. Paul, you know, across Canada we've seen two cities recently, big cities, Calgary and Waterloo, vote fluoride out of their water. And it wasn't based on a fly-by-night pseudoscience decision. It was based on some real science that you point out in your book.
It was very exciting. I was actually able to go to Waterloo twice and speak there before the citizens voted on it, and I think it's poetic justice. In the second time I went, which was a few days before the vote, the proponents of fluoridation refused to debate me. And I think that's exciting that they should lose the vote, and it was a very close vote. So if they'd had the confidence of their convictions and actually debated me, you know, they might have won that thing, but they didn't debate me, and we won the vote. The other thing which is exciting about the Calgary decision, the Calgary Council voted 10-3 to stop fluoridation there after 20 years, and the fellow that led the fight in Calgary was Professor James Beck, who is the co-author of our book, The Case Against Fluoride. So this is a good omen. One of the authors of this book stopped fluoridation in Calgary. I was helpful in stopping fluoridation in Canton, New York several years ago, and Spenny Micklem, the third author, is in Scotland, and they're trying to introduce fluoridation into Scotland. So we've been pretty well placed, the three of us, to stop fluoridation, but it would be fantastic if we could stop it in London, Ontario.
Now,
because you know, Waterloo is only an hour from here.
Now we put out a public offer, you know, to have a debate with you and some of our public health officers here in London, and they declined debating you, Paul. Why are they so afraid of you?
Well, I think this is very disgusting. You know, they just simply do not have the courage of their convictions. Obviously, if they were secure in this notion that fluoridation was safe and effective, the simplest thing to do to get rid of someone like me is to come and debate me and expose the weaknesses in our argument. We've written a whole book on this, 80 pages of documentation, and now, if they can't debate me, at least in the privacy of their safe offices, let them come back with a scientific response to the case against fluoride. I don't think they can, but what the responsible thing to do, and the just thing to do, if they can't defend their position in open public debate, if they can't respond in writing in the same scientific tone that we've established in this book to the case against fluoride, if they can't respond and produce the case for fluoride equally scientifically documented, then it's time to stop this practice.
Now let's go into some sound bites here with your book. You're basically in your book saying that fluoride is not safe, it's not effective, and it's not ethical. Can you give us some bottom lines with regards to those statements?
Yes, it's not ethical because you're forcing medication on people. If a doctor was to do what the whole of the council is doing to the whole of London, Ontario, they would lose their license. A doctor cannot force a patient to take a medicine, and that's what the council is doing when they force fluoridation on this city. It's a bad medical practice. In addition to the bad ethics of it in terms of violating the individual's informed consent, you can't control the dose, you can't control who gets it, there's no individual medical supervision, there's no health agency tracking side effects. So it's a terrible bad medical practice, and we've never used this. Since fluoridation began in 1945, we haven't used the public water supply to deliver medicine. Any other medicine, any other vitamin, any other nutrient, never done it, never done it. It's ineffective, and it's ineffective. Swallowing fluoride does not reduce tooth decay. If fluoride reduces tooth decay at all, it's because it works topically on the surface of the teeth. They've admitted that. In 1999, the Centre for Disease Control admitted that fluoride worked topically. That's the predominant mode of action, is topical. If it works topically, then obvious thing to do is to use fluoridated toothpaste and spit it out. This way you avoid exposing every tissue in the body and exposing people that don't want it. So it solves the ethical argument, it solves the safety argument. Most countries in the world do not fluoridate their water, and yet their tooth decay is just as good as those that do. So the evidence that it works is extremely weak. When communities have stopped fluoridation in Finland, in Cuba, in British Columbia and former East Germany, tooth decay did not go up. We do not need fluoride in the water. It's not a nutrient. It is a very toxic substance. And the substance that they use is not pharmaceutical grade. It's an industrial hazardous waste from the phosphate fertilizer industry. It's amazing but true. They can't dump that into the sea by international law. They can't dump it locally because it's too concentrated. And if someone buys a hazardous waste from a company, it's no longer classified as a hazardous waste, it becomes a product. And it's at that point that they put it in our drinking water. It's absolutely bizarre. And lastly, it's not safe. It is no argument whatsoever that fluoride damages health. Millions of people in India, in China, parts of Africa, Mexico have had their health ruined, their bones ruined, possibly their brains ruined by fluoride. And so there's no argument about that. It's thoroughly documented in the scientific literature. The only argument left is whether or not there's an adequate margin of safety between the doses which we know cause harm in the studies and the doses that we are likely to get in the community. Is there a sufficient margin of safety to protect everybody from known health effects, to protect everyone? And the answer is no. We do not have an adequate margin of safety to protect against arthritis. We do not have an adequate margin of safety to protect against bone fractures. We do not have an adequate margin of safety to protect all children from the lowering of IQ caused by fluoride, now documented in 24 studies. So it's not safe, it's not effective, it's not ethical, it's a bad medical practice, it should never have started, and now it should be stopped.
Now, our local newspaper here, London Free Press, said that we anti-fluoride people are following nothing but pseudoscience, and that any science that comes out of the internet is basically pseudoscience.
That's absolute nonsense. If a paper is peer-reviewed and published in a journal, it really doesn't matter if you read it in the journal itself, whether you read a Xerox copy or whether you read a PDF file on the internet. It's just a vehicle of communication. Now, obviously, there is junk on the internet, including the website of the American Dental Association. So people have to be careful about what they read. But if you're talking about peer-reviewed and published studies in journals, and it's ridiculous to describe that as pseudoscience or junk science. But as far as science is concerned, 3 scientists, Dr. James Beck, an MD, PhD physicist, Spedding Micklem, a PhD from Oxford in biology, and myself, a PhD chemist, we've written the book, The Case Against Fluoride, 80 pages of documentation. Every single fact that we give in that book is documented from the primary scientific literature. Let those who claim this is pseudoscience to produce a scientific response to our arguments. If what they're saying is true, it should be easy for the free press to get the scientists to come and prove that we're wrong. But they never do that. This is like shadow boxing. They never come out of the shadows. They never come away from their solo performances in front of the public to come out and debate in public, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, whatever. They will not debate this issue with scientists, and they will not respond in writing to scientific arguments when we put them into writing. It's just unacceptable.
Now, your co-author, Dr. Beck, said that he believes fluoride will be out of all the water, all the municipalities here in Canada within the next 4 years, for example.
I think Canada is definitely going to break this practice worldwide. Right now, very few communities in British Columbia fluoridate, very few communities fluoridate in Quebec. Meanwhile, we have discussion of ending this in Nova Scotia. We have Calgary voting it out. We have Dryden voting it out after 40 years. We have Waterloo voting it out after, I think, 36 years. We have the Niagara region voting it out. We have groups organized in Hamilton, in Oakville, in Toronto, in Ottawa, and other communities. So yes, I think it is a matter of time. What we need to do in the interim is to make sure that those communities that continue to fluoridate put a warning in the water bills to parents not to use fluoridated tap water to make up baby formula, because if they do use fluoridated tap water for that purpose, they're going to give their baby 250 times more fluoride than a breastfed baby, and that does not make sense. We know it increases the risk of dental fluorosis, and we also suspect that it could also be damaging their brains.
Well, Dr. Connett, I think this is probably enough time. I don't want you to freeze your tail off here in this cold weather today. Thank you so much for coming to London, Ontario, and doing this event tonight at the Wolf Hall Central Library. And thank you so much for your book, The Case Against Fluoride. And please, everyone, visit his website, Fluoride Alert.
And if you go to the website, please make sure that you watch the video online. It's available online, called Professional Perspectives Against Water Fluoridation, which is 15 scientists, including a Nobel Prize winner, 2 former EPA scientists, 3 authors of the National Research Council report on fluoride in drinking water from 2006, Dr. Sir Ian Chalmers and a few others, including myself, explaining why water fluoridation should end. That's 28 minutes. I very much suspect that anybody that watches that with an open mind will be opposed to fluoridation and help to get it out of London, Ontario, and the rest of Ontario. And Pam, do zoom in, would you, on that lovely sign of yours? I hope we can get that on the internet.
There it is, your name. I don't know how many feet high your name is there, Paul, but
it's rather big.
Yeah, so it's fluoridealert.org. Everyone visit that website, yes. And please, and you're on Facebook as well, right?
Okay, yes we are.
Fluoride Action Network on Facebook.
Yeah.
Take a visit.
Great, thanks a lot.